Okay, so we're now going to wrap up our macromolecules stuff here that we've been talking about with the chocolate bar, with our chocolate. We have our carbs for energy. We have our lipids for fats for cell membranes, insulation. Yeah, you can use it for energy, but not the ideal thing. And then we have our proteins for all of those different functions that we talked about, that the enzymes, the muscle, the ligaments, the tendons, the immune system, etc. And yes, they can be used for energy. But the critical thing about the proteins is that shape equals function, and if we change the shape, that's called denaturing, you screw up the function. So, okay, so the last group is going to be, and I apologize, let me move this down. The last group here are the nucleic acids. This group, we call them the nucleic acids. And this group, we don't ever really consciously have to worry about, oh, did I get my nucleic acids today? It's in everything we eat. It's in the food we eat. It's part of living organisms when we consume them. So the nucleic acids are made up of these tiny little things called nucleotides. They're basic building block. Is nucleotide. So when you eat a nucleic acid, you're eating it in usually the form of DNA or RNA. And that DNA or RNA is made up of billions and billions and billions of nucleotides. Our body breaks it down and just reuses it. Now, when we build our DNA, we're using it for genetic information. That's what DNA does, is it contains our genetic information. That's what tells your body, make your hair brown, make your eyes green, make your blood type O. That's all based on the genetic code in your DNA. RNA is an intermediate code of information that helps tell your body how to build protein structures. And we'll get into this later on in some other relevant lectures when we talk about biotechnology stuff. But the basic concept here is a nucleotide is made up of three parts. Part 1 is the phosphate group. Part 2 is a sugar, deoxyribose. And part 3 is a nitrogenous base. I call this the sugar shack. Here's your little chimney, and the nitrogenous base is your porch. Now, when we talk about nitrogenous bases, in all living things, you have a porch that could be called adenine, or A porch that could be called thymine, or T. Cytosine is a C, and guanine is a G. ATCG. Those are the four porches associated with your DNA. Now, if we jump over to that stuff called RNA, then we kick out thymine and we switch it with the base called uracil, or the porch called uracil. So this is your DNA porches. Oh, that's supposed to be a DNA. Sorry about the mess. And this is your RNA. So RNA still has adenine, but it uses uracil, cytosine, and guanine. Okay? So it's a little bit different because it's just a code. It takes the DNA information, becomes this intermediate code that then moves over and tells the cells how to build specific protein structures that are based on those amino acids you've been eating. All right? So when we use nucleotides, we take the nucleotides, build different structures, make different DNA, RNA for the body to function, and contains the genetic information that all living things have. Now, the one I want you guys to focus on right now is this nucleotide called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Draw this out with me, all right? So this is your little sugar house, just like DNA and RNA. It's going to have a porch. The porch is adenine. That's where the A comes from. And then those chimneys, I want you to stack 3 chimneys up. All right, you got 3 chimneys there? Let me make this really big. Okay, adenosine triphosphate, ATP. This is the energy currency all life uses. Oh, wow, this mouse drawing writing is horrible. All right, all life uses adenosine triphosphate. I don't care what you are, bacteria, human, plant, does not matter. That chocolate bar you're eating, the carbohydrates will be broken down to monosaccharides. That goes into your cell, and then your cell turns the monosaccharide into ATP. Same thing happens with the lipids, same thing with the proteins. This is the ultimate goal for everything you eat when it's trying to be turned into energy, is to turn it into ATP. So you have this sugar with a porch and 3 phosphate chimneys. And then what's going to happen is a metabolic reaction in your body goes BAM! And snaps off that phosphate. When that phosphate pops off, it's like a big explosion of energy getting released. All right, so energy comes off. This is the energy we use for our heart to beat, for our brain to work, for your computer, for your arm to move your mouse to control your computer. All of it comes from this breaking of this phosphate away from the other phosphates. Fortunately, our body will reassemble the phosphate. That's where the food comes in. You eat the food, and the food, as we digest it and convert it through a process called cellular respiration, we're moving that phosphate back on, reforming this ATP to then explode it again to give us even more energy. All right, so again, we'll get into this later when we talk about metabolism and metabolic rates, but this is huge. Remember ATP. So for no other reason, when you eat a chocolate bar, other than they're pretty good, you're trying to make energy from it. And the carbs are your primary source to make ATP with. And then you can use the lipids, and then you can use the proteins, but let's focus on the carbs. Okay? All right, so let's check this out. Here's kind of the overview of what we're talking about here. So if it's easier to work with a table, absolutely. Go for it. Use the table here. Whatever's the easiest way to remember these concepts and these ideas. But those are the 4 groups of macromolecules: carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, and what their function is. I'm not worried about you guys memorizing little molecular formulas. That's not relevant. That doesn't mean anything. But why do I need carbohydrates? Why do I need proteins? What are the functions of those things? That's what's relevant. All right. So you guys have your bag of M&Ms or your chocolate bar or whatever chocolate you're eating. flip over and look at the nutritional label. Now here's the one from a Hershey bar with almonds. And take a look at it. Every label should have this basic information. How many calories? 210. So what we have to do though is pay attention to this. Amount per serving. Now this bar is actually, one bar is a single serving. So this whole bar gives you 210 calories. You're going to derive approximately 130 calories from the fat that you're eating in the bar. So this is where you go 130 divided by 9 gives you approximately your 14 grams. Or you could go the other way. 14 grams times 9 calories gives you 130 fat calories. Carbs, 21 grams of carbs. Remember the multiplier, roughly 4 calories per carbohydrate. So 4 calories times 21 gives us 84. 84 plus 130 officially would be 214. I like to round it instead of saying 3.92 and 9 or 8.94 when we're talking about the calories. I just like to round it to 9 calories from fat, 4 calories for carbs. Do the math. There you go. The protein in here, you're not getting any energy from the 4 grams of protein. You're not getting calories from it. That's not the purpose of the protein in this bar. Okay? Ingredient-wise, tells you what all the ingredients are. Check out the nutritional label on the things you're eating. Do pay attention to other things like cholesterol, sodium, fiber, etc. And that's actually why we don't, when we talked about 21 grams times 4 would give us the extra, well, some of our fiber, some of our grams of carbs are in the form of fiber. We're not digesting it. We're not getting our energy from that. It's just going to move through the system. All right, so take a look at the labels in front of you. What do they tell you? What information can you derive from that? All right, so here's kind of the breakdown. What's in it? This is just your generic Hershey's chocolate bar with almonds. The chemicals in it, the sources that were used to derive the carbohydrates, the lipids, the proteins, etc., to create that bar. So, all right, so check it out. Take a look at it and get more knowledge about it. That's what I want you guys to do, is become a bit more aware of what you're eating here. Okay, so let's leave off on this last part here with, is chocolate dangerous to dogs? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. There are different products, alkaloid is the official term, for the things in cacao, in the chocolate. There's this one called theobromine. This is in chocolate, and if a dog eats it, they can't metabolize it. They can't break it down. So it basically becomes toxic for that animal. That can be serious. Regular chocolate has some of it. The dark chocolates, concentrations are extremely higher, sometimes 10 times higher in the dark chocolates. So please don't ever give your dog chocolate. Even if, oh, well, here's just a chocolate cookie, or there's a cookie with some chocolate chips in it. It's not worth it. You don't know how your dog's body is going to react to it. Some, it may be fine. Like, oh, I gave my dog plenty of chocolate, no problems. Then your friend does the same thing to their dog, and their dog gets sick and dies. Every animal is going to react a little differently to it. It's not worth the risk. Give your dog other treats. There's plenty of other things. Heck, give your dog a chunk of ham or meat. It's a lot healthier than chocolate because, yes, chocolate can be very deadly to dogs if they get too high of a concentration. So that is not urban myth. That is science. We want to be careful and not allow our dogs any chocolate. All right. So we've run through a bunch of different aspects of the food. Let's now take a look at, in the next lecture, how it digests, this process of digestion we were talking about beforehand.